State Representative Dr. John Bizon is our guest this morning. Dr. Bizon, good morning to you. It's good to have you back.
Why, thank you so much for the invitation to come and join you this morning, Tim. This is marvelous.
I get these emails, 50 or 100 of them an hour from LinkedIn.
Oh, I love it.
And one of them said, congratulate Dr. John Bizon on his 2-year anniversary, job anniversary.
Okay, yes. It's a brand new job and a brand new set of expectations. It's taken a little bit of adjustment to move from that world of do no harm and you and me against the whole world and into the world of politics, where every time you press that button, you affect 10 million people at a time. And, you know, it's not that world of do no harm anymore. You know, there are always winners and losers every time you touch that button.
Yep. And Dr. Bizon, of course, alluding to his previous, and current profession as a medical doctor, which you did for how long?
Oh, about 37 years altogether.
Before he got into the political arena. And I think arena is the right word. I mean, it was like Roman gladiator, Christians and the lions, it felt like. I mean, even in our little old Calhoun County race, I hear these as Dr. John Bizon once knew a man who threw litter out of his car window. It's like, he once knew a guy who littered. They couldn't find much, so they kind of...
I was in many ways disappointed with the attacks, trying to link me with Enbridge, for not co-sponsoring a bill that 91% of the people in the House didn't co-sponsor. It's not like we were hanging out there anywhere, and... I really tried to go out there and run a positive race because I felt that there was a lot that was positive that we could bring forward, at least on our side of the aisle, and...
Where did those spots originate from? I mean, the Democratic Party?
I believe so, yes. I would have to say that Brandon Dillon went out of his way to come down here, and I think it was back in June of last year where he started talking about the Senate office building, a project that was set up before I even got there. The financing of that was done when Brandon Dillon was in leadership in the House.
And that's right. I forgot you spent millions of my money to build yourself a cushy office so you could put your feet up on the desk.
You tell lies often enough, and they begin to resonate. And
well, that's why they do it. It works, and I mean both sides do it. And frankly, when one side does it, then the other side has to return fire, or because there's a reason. As I said, that there's a reason why they do that. So they must have these meetings among these hired guns that they hire to come up with negative political ads, and they must sit around a table. Well, what do we got? Yeah, well, he once knew a guy who threw a McDonald's bag out the window on the highway, or he knows 3 guys that once smoked, he knew a guy that that once voted against the Enbridge bill. Or, I don't know. Let's go with that. And then they pile on. It's really disgusting, but. Legislatively, is there anything that you can do in Lansing? I mean, do our tax dollars go into these negative ads?
They really do not. These are all dollars that are outside of the system that you will fundraise from whatever source is agreeable with your point of view for the most part.
So it's free enterprise, free speech, and we're pretty much stuck with it.
We can always put some limits on what we have done, and even in our fundraising efforts, you are only allowed to raise so many dollars per individual. And for the House race, it was $1,000 was the most that you could accept from any one individual. If you take any more than that, then you have to return the money. And so we have that limit. That limit was increased again before I got there from $500 to $1,000, and there are those who would argue that perhaps that fundraising limit ought to be even lower than what it is. There is always the concern that big money rules these races, and if you take a look at who wins the races, you'll find that in something like 91% of the cases, it's the person who raises more money is the person who is eventually successful. But then again, that's in part because people are much more willing to give to the party that they anticipate is going to win the election. And most of the time, these districts are drawn so that you know who's going to win by the results of the primary, that these districts oftentimes are very, very Republican-leaning districts or very, very Democratic-leaning districts. And so it's much, much easier for that candidate to raise money with the anticipation by the donors that, yes, this is going to be our candidate moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And in these districts like Calhoun County, where we're fairly balanced with the Democrat, Republican population, voting population, I guess that means you're going to be a target district, and people are going to, they're going to think, well, yeah, I'm going to invest because my candidate has a chance to win. Whereas we were talking a little bit off air, my state rep is Dave Maturin. Mm-hmm. As I live just a little outside of town. Different story there, where it's kind of one-sided. The Republican doesn't have to campaign so hard.
And that is exactly correct. That personally, I would love to see an end to some of this gerrymandering that goes on. I think that it has a tendency to polarize our legislature, and you end up with candidates winning who are much more leaning towards either the left or the right, or rather than remaining in the center. And it makes it a little bit tougher, from that standpoint.
My emails from LinkedIn says, congratulate John Bizon on the work anniversary. We do that as your 2-year term comes to an end and your next 2-year term starts. And when we come back, I want to ask you what you hope to accomplish in those next 2 years as our state representative. State Representative Dr. John Bizon is with us today as he starts his second term in the Lansing legislature. I remember when you were running, Dr. Bizon, and basically what you said is, I think we need somebody in Lansing who has been on the medical side of it, kind of knows the score of what doctors and healthcare providers, the real facts, because we didn't really have a lot of doctors in the state house or the state senate. We used to have, Dr. Joe Schwartz.
Yes.
And that was a great thing. But he's been out of there for a while now. So how many doctors are there?
Right now we have 2 doctors, myself and another osteopathic doctor by the name of Ned Canfield. And Ned and I have a little bit of history in that when I was president of the State Medical Society of Michigan State Medical Society, he was president of the Michigan Osteopathic Society. And so we had the chance to interact even, this would have been probably 2012 or so. So we were working together back then. I think that we were able to advance some unity among physicians between our 2 organizations while we were presidents of our respective organizations. And we developed meetings with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I think that we did some good things.
I remember, though, you saying when you were running for office that as a physician and working with an organization that was trying to provide information, often we're falling on deaf ears, You'd go up there as an expert representing a major organization, and lawmakers would say, do I hear a noise? Is somebody talking who's not a lawmaker? See if you can get rid of that noise.
And
has that been your...
Exactly.
So
correct.
Has that changed now that you are actually a sitting representative?
I think that it takes a little while to make sure that you have built up a relationship with the other legislators. And yes, that is an ongoing process. Each year we have a brand new group of legislators that are going to be coming in, and so I have my work cut out for me to develop that same relationship with the new members that are coming in. And I think that we were fairly effective this past 2 years in developing that relationship with the sitting legislators. And you are right. They oftentimes, even though you are the president of a 17,000 member organization, they they oftentimes look to their own for expertise, and that was provided in the past by Tom George. When Tom was around, he was an anesthesiologist from Kalamazoo, and following him was Roger Kahn, again, another senator from the east side of the state who was a cardiologist, and he chaired appropriations in the Senate, a very, very responsible position. And you're right, one of my favorite lines that I would hear when I would go up there to discuss medical issues as president of the society was, well, we're going to check with Roger and get back with you to let you know what we think, because you're treated as a lobbyist. You're treated as someone who has a very specific point of view, and that's taken with a grain of salt.
So all that said, then, I take it one of your major issues, one of the things you hope to accomplish in your next term in the Michigan legislature is addressing our health care issues.
I think that we have very significant health care issues in this country. I don't think that we can continue to afford health care as we currently deliver it. You know, we are currently spending at the federal level our children's and our grandchildren's legacies on our health care costs. You take a look at your copays and your deductibles and your insurance premiums, and they're going up. Even under the ACA, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, you're seeing that the premiums are going up by 40, 50, 100% in some places. And that makes a product that is very, very unaffordable. And many people are calling that ACA the Unaffordable Care Act rather than the alternative.
Well, it's almost a certainty it'll be repealed now with President Trump and a majority in both legislatures in Washington.
And yes, I'm anxious to see, well, perhaps eager to see what changes are going to go on. I think it may give us some opportunity here within the state, and I will be excited to be able to have at least a voice at the table.
Could we provide leadership? Could we actually lead the way?
I am sure that we could, that if we had a program in Michigan that made our citizens healthier, that was cost effective, that allowed for a reduction in costs and improvement in health, I am sure that other states would say, wow, look at what they're doing. We want to do something similar to that.
Well, that's what happened with Massachusetts, you know, and their model ended up being sort of what we've got now.
It was, but if you take a look at the Massachusetts model and ask, is that a successful model? I think that they have largely dismantled their own individual model that had much greater coverage, and they went over to the ACA and the provisions of the ACA, and the original model that the ACA was based upon was found to be non-effective. They tried that in Hawaii, and they found that that model, too, could not be afforded. And that's one of the main problems in saying that, yes, we want to do healthcare as we currently are doing it. We can't afford the model in the long term, and we do need to find a better way to do it.
What's the biggest thing that we need to change about our healthcare system that'll make it better?
You know, I think that we need to take responsibility for our own health care. I think that right now we rely on insurance companies to ration care and control costs. And I would say that it's incumbent upon each of us to ration our own care, to say that, yes, I am willing to take the responsibility for my health. You have patients who have significant health problems, and you don't want doctors to make the decisions for those patients. You want the patients to be informed, to be able to make the decisions with the doctor's guidance as far as how can I get my health care in the most cost-efficient manner.
Mm-hmm. Dr. John Bizon, state representative here in Calhoun County's 62nd District, yes, is our guest. We'll be back in chat in our final segment after this. Representative John Bizon, the 62nd District, is our guest this morning. And, you know, a tragic week for us here at WBCK and for our whole state of Michigan. John, the police officer Colin Rose, killed in Detroit at Wayne State, just gunned down. murdered on the streets there, and his mother works with us here at WBCK as one of our account executives, and it just sickens us.
It does, and it sickens me as a legislator, too. We have these people who are putting their lives on the line each and every day, trying to make sure that we are safe, and yet they are targeted for violence, and it makes absolutely no sense to me.
He was just doing his job, and someone gunned him down. We had a job fair here in Battle Creek that we sponsored a couple of months ago. There was a Wayne County sheriff's deputy there trying to recruit because he said they have 300 job openings in Wayne County and they can't fill them. So they're beating the bushes all around the state to try to find police officers. And why would anybody want to do it? And further, what's going to deter these animals from doing this? And my call this morning on the radio was, I think Michigan needs to do something they haven't done, and that is reinstate the death penalty in this state. And I'm not going to put you on the spot. I will next time I see you because it'll give you time to think it over. But I would like to see somebody in your legislature enact a bill to reinstate the death penalty in Michigan for killing a police officer. And I think we owe our police officers something like that. What else can we do to protect them?
We need to make sure that we respect our police more than anything else. We need our police not to be the enemy within our communities. They are our friends. They are the people that protect us on a daily basis. And, we need to make sure that our communities are supportive of our police. And all too often we have communities where we will have policemen who are shunned, that we have people who avoid the police. They don't want to be known as someone who tattles. They don't want to communicate with the police when they know something. And, that cooperation is essential. Oftentimes when I take a look at our mass killings, I oftentimes find that there are very, very unstable people in our community that perform these crazy acts, and maybe that this falls into that category as well. And we need to have a better way of screening for either mental illness or violence or antisocial tendencies. You
take somebody who's just not quite right, living on the streets in the city of Detroit, gets a gun. What have they got to lose? I mean, they could shoot and kill a police officer, and if they get caught, they're just going to get a warm cell and 3 squares a day the rest of their life. I'm telling you, if they had that thought in the back of their mind that they were going to have to pay with their life, maybe it would save some police officers. I'll tell you, I don't think we're going to get justice for Colin Rose. I think the best we can do is the taxpayers will be on the hook for his killer for the rest of his life, his or her life. We don't know. So that's something to think about. It's something that I'd like our listeners to think about. Maybe we'll get a chance to do a call in one of these days and see where people are at. Michigan has never executed anyone. They abolished it in 1846. And in 1963, they finally abolished the death penalty for treason. Mm-hmm. But we have never executed anybody in this state. And I don't know. I don't think that's anything to be proud of. But that's just my opinion.
It is indeed a tragedy that is upon us, and we do need to have better answers. And I'll be willing to listen to everyone who has a reasonable voice, that has ideas. And I've really enjoyed the opportunity of bringing forward the voice of the people of Calhoun County.
And on that note, you are meeting with Senator Mike Knopf about his energy bill tomorrow. Yes. You're still kind of weighing all the pros and cons of that energy bill?
I am. It's a big bill. It has lots of different facets, and some facets I think are marvelous, and other facets not so excited about.
So you'd like to hear what people think between now and your meeting with State Senator Knopf?
Well, I think it'll even go beyond that. I don't know that we are scheduled to take up energy here within the next week or so. I think it's going to be pushed back to at least the second or third week if we bring it up at all. But I think that there is, among our leadership, the will to do something regarding it. We know that the Consumers Energy and the DTEs are shutting down a lot of their coal-fired plants, and that's something that is in process and isn't going to change under a Trump administration. And the question becomes, do we have enough energy moving forward, and what is the right path? And there are those who would argue that perhaps we ought to push this off to have a more lengthy, meaningful discussion in the next session.
But then that never happens, and people are like, oh, we got more time now, so we're not going to meet.
And so, yeah, I'm not quite sure I know where this is going, but I think that people have about a week, and I'd encourage them to call my office at 517-373-0555, which is my Lansing office, and leave me a note, leave me a message, and make sure that your voice is heard if you have a strong opinion one way or the other. I anticipate reaching out to various leaders within our community as well and get their opinion of this bill moving forward. And I very much consider Mike, even though he is the sponsor of the bill, someone who is a very educated voice on this topic. He has spent 2 years as the chair of energy in the House, and I believe
in the Senate, yeah.
In the Senate, and I believe he may have done energy in the House as well before his Senate. And so he has a great deal of expertise in the area, and so we will take seriously his thoughts, but that doesn't mean that I'm not open to other comments as well.
State Representative Dr. John Bizon, thank you very much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving weekend.
Thank you so much, Tim.